Hey friends, welcome back to your own channel for yet another exciting video. This is our third and last part of our end-to-end data analysis project series. And guess what? We'll be creating our first Tableau dashboard today from the data that we pulled out using World Bank API. If you haven't watched the previous video of this series, you will find the link right there on your screen, and I'd recommend you to go and watch it out first. So before we begin, a quick disclaimer. We are going to work on Tableau today extensively, and it's very intuitive. So even if you don't know Tableau, you will definitely follow it. So don't worry and keep watching. Also, if you're new to my channel and haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. It gives me a lot of motivation to create more and more content like this. Okay. Before we jump dive to Tableau, here are the quick glimpse of today's session. There you go. Let's begin. So we are on our Python notebook here, and to give you a quick recap of what all we have done so far. So we started with importing usual libraries. Then we call our World Bank API. We identified there are 16 unique columns for which we wanted data across all countries. And we defined our time frame from 2015 to 2020. Then we went on and calling API from World Bank, and we got the data. We have structured it into the required format only for G20 countries as we desired, and we got our data into perfect data frame. In the second video, we went ahead and did exploratory data analysis. We did a lot of basic exploratory analysis of the data, including finding out the distribution pattern of the data. We also tried and create a couple of columns which makes more sense in terms of exploring the data. We've seen the distribution in terms of histogram and the pattern when it comes to outliers. We've also seen different outlier percentages in each of the column that we observed. And then we also seen the correlation part of it. We also visualize it. Eventually, we ended up seeing the different type of graphs and different type of tables. And we did a lot of such analysis in our previous video. So in this session, our objective is to visualize this data more effectively using more interactive dashboard. For now, we have this data frame called DFF. Now this data frame I wanted in form of CSV or Excel, which I can easily go and read it in Tableau. So what I'm going to do here, I type DFF, that's our data frame, what we had, and I'm going to write to Excel, which will export my data frame into an Excel format to my folder where this Jupyter notebook resides. So I say name of the notebook would be, let's say, G20 World Bank data.xlsx. Now this is the data which I wanted, and let me export this. Once I do it, I'll go to the required folder and I find the G20 World Bank data being exported here. Now this is the file which we have right now. Okay, so let me quickly show you the Excel file here. As you see, we have our data frame, which is written now in Excel, and we have all the required data. So let me close this Excel file and let me open Tableau here. So I'm going to my search bar. I'm typing Tableau Public. For the purpose of this project, I'm using Tableau Public. Now, there are many versions of Tableau which is available. Tableau Public is free to use, so you can work on Tableau Public. You can download it. I'll put the downloading link in the description of this video. You can download Tableau Public, install it in your computer just like any other program. You can open it, start working on it. You can save your work on Tableau Public profile. So you also need to create your Tableau Public profile. So let me start, and as it opens up, once it does, you'll see this kind of box. So you should go and read Microsoft Excel because our data is in Microsoft Excel format. So I'm going and click on Microsoft Excel. We are on the same folder and we have this data called G20 World Bank data, which I'm pulling. I'm opening up data. As I do that, it will read the data, show me the top sample of the data, that this is my data, and practically our data is correctly imported as I can see all the columns. And you also see the data type of the column, like here is having the date time data type, and country is having like a latitude and longitude data type. So we are fine with this. So we are straight away going to the sheet 1 here and start creating our visualizations. But before we go and jump dive and create a different visualization, it's very important when you start with your creating your dashboard is to visualize what all different type of columns or charts you want to create rather than you're just going by your intuition. It's very important that you begin writing what all different type of visualization you want to create for each of your dashboard. So we are going to create 2 dashboard here. Let me pull it out this. Now in this list, I have created different type of charts, which I'm going to create today. So as you can see, there are 8 charts that we are going to create, and we are using this 8 charts to create ultimately 2 different type of dashboards. Now we're going to study about inflation rate over the years. That's being the talk of the town in recent year. Then we're going to study country-wise unemployment rate and access to electricity as well. Next, we are going to create government education spending and its efficacy in particular. Then we are seeing GDP and gross capital formation along with exports and imports. Then we are going to see mobile subscription versus gross national income. And then we are going to see the FDI distribution across different countries. So that's the broad objective we have for the today's session. Let me take you back to the Tableau dashboard. And we can start with our first visualization, and that's inflation rate over the years. So what I'm going to do is on the left side of the panel, you see all the columns, rather dimension and measures as they say in Tableau. So they are basically all the columns that is available for us to play. On the right hand side, it's your canvas where you create different type of charts, right? So since we going to create inflation over the years, we require 2 columns, that's our inflation rate, and I also required year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my year and I'm pulling it into the column, and I'm taking my inflation rate and put it into the rows. As I do that, I find there is a line graph which is automatically created by Tableau, and I have a sheet title, that's my chart name. So it's important to have the title of each of the chart because that will help us to identify the charts that we created. So I'm going to write this as an inflation rate maybe. Yeah. And then I'm going to edit this title a little bit to make it more visually appealing. Okay. Now, we are setting up the chart, as you see, is only occupying the part of the canvas, which I wanted to fit it in an entire view. So I'm going to select the entire view for all of our charts, not just this chart. Okay, now this is one line for all the years across the year for all the G20 countries put together, right? But what I'm interested is to see the different countries in here, right? So I can pull out the country field and I can put it right here into the color. But as I do that, I can see there are a lot of lines lying out there, and which makes no sense for me. So it's better to visualize 2 countries at a time. So what I'm going to do again is to pull out that country column, and let me pull it out and put it into under this filter box. As you can see, as I do that, it will throw me this kind of comment box where I can select a particular country. Let's say I'm going to select maybe, let's say Canada, and let's say Germany, right? And I'll deselect all of the columns. If you wish to see the 3 countries, you can do that, or multiple countries. Filter is always available, and I mark it OK. So now you can see the 2 countries available here. And in case if you want filter to be displayed here, you can display your filter or dynamically change it, right? So this is our inflation rate graph. Now, the couple of things, the axis right now you see is in typically default color. Year is there on the top, which I don't want it. So I select on the year and I right click it and I say that hide field labels from the column. So I don't want year to be up here. It's very natural and intuitive that on the bottom you see the year. So let me hide the labels. And again, I click on my y-axis and I right click it and I format my axis. As I do format my axis, there is an option on left hand side of the panel. Here you see, and I can change the font. And let me see, let me make it blue and bold. And this inflation rate, the column name, I want it in maybe some different color. Let me put this color right here. And similarly, let me change my x-axis as well. Let me format it. So I go and since this is a header, let me change it to blue maybe. Yeah. And that's pretty much okay with us. But right now we do not see any kind of label in here. So we want basically label. And what we see is the sum of inflation rate, which I'm not interested in. I want average inflation rate in each year, but it doesn't matter because in each year, each country will have only one inflation rate figure. But to make it more meaningful, let me do the average part of it. I also want label to be put up here. So let me again take the inflation rate as a column and put it under the label marks card. Once I put it there, you will see that the labels are clearly appear on each of the line point. Now here also, I'm going to make change instead of measure as a sum. I'm going to create measure and select instead of sum average. Now it doesn't make difference as I said. Let me also filter the label. So right now, as you see the label, it's after decimal place, it's of 3 digit. But that makes our graph very cumbersome to read. So I just want after decimal point, maybe 1 place. So I'm going to average inflation rate here and go into format option. And here I go to the numbers part of it. Here, click on the numbers and you have a different option. So I'm going to numbers custom and instead of decimal place 2 points, I'm selecting 1 point here. And as I do that, like 1 point, I see now after decimal place, there's only 1 point, which is apparent. Right? Now, if I want to change the color of this label, I can do that. I can go to the font part of it and I can select blue color and maybe like this. So you'll see now labels are also marked in blue color. And this is typically our inflation rate chart. And this is your first chart, right? Now, let me copy this so that we need not to go and do all the kind of changes that we do on axis every time on the chart. So let me just duplicate this slide. So let me right click on my inflation rate tab at the bottom and select duplicate. As I do that, it will create same duplicate canvas with inflation rate. The second chart, which we are going to create today, is country-wise unemployment rate. Okay, so we want country and we want unemployment rate, right? So these are the 2 columns which we require. So what we're going to do that instead of year and average inflation rate, let me remove this as well. Let me remove country as well from here. Okay, so what we require is country-wise unemployment rate. So let me pull out the unemployment rate first. That must be here, unemployment rate, and let me put it here. And this is sum of unemployment rate. So it will aggregate all the years unemployment rate, but we also want year-wise. So let me put year here and let me put by country. Yeah. And so right now you see Canada and Germany. That's because we have put filter of country here for Canada and Germany. And let me also pull out country and put it into the color box to differentiate between the 2 charts. And now you can see the Canada and Germany. And right now the title shows the inflation rate, but we are actually seeing the unemployment rate. So let me go down and change the name of my tab saying that unemployment rate. Now this is the chart which we wanted. Only thing that if you see the x-axis, it's still the same. There is no change in the color. It's in default color. So we need to change it. So let me go and click on the x-axis. Let me choose format and we can go to the axis here in Access, let me select blue here and make it little bold. For title, I wanted this color. So we are good with the Access now. Only thing here you see the country Canada and Germany. In case if you want different countries here, let's say you can do show filter here, right? And as you do show filter on the right hand side of panel, you see the option of selecting country. So here I want Canada, and let's say instead of Germany, let's take let's say India here, and let me put it back here. Now, if you want to change the color of this country, you can change it. So let me edit the colors. You can change color. If you want the color of Canada to be different, maybe let's say red, you can do that. And as you select it, you will find the different colors here, right? Now, we also don't see the labels in here. So if you want labels again, we can select our unemployment rate. That's what we are seeing it. And let me put it into the label marks card here. As I put it there, you can see that labels are updated. Again, it's 3 numbers after decimal place. Let me correct it. So I'm going to this unemployment. That's my label card. And let me go and select format here. Once I do that, I find the numbers option here. Let me go to the numbers, go to numbers custom and select maybe 1 decimal place, and that will do my work, right? So that's unemployment rate graph that we created. So let me duplicate it here. And now next graph which we wanted to create here, access to electricity, right? So I want access to electricity as a column. So let me remove year here. Let me remove countries here. Let me remove this filters. Okay, let me remove everything. Let me change the name of my tab and I say access to electricity. As I do that, you can see the title of a graph changed. So we want access to electricity here. And I wanted to see across all countries. So let me select country. Once I select column, and you can hold your control key and select the columns. That's how you can select multiple columns. There is an option called show me here. So if you go to show me, it will give you the different options available for this to column where you can plot the ready-made chart. So I'm going to select this geographical representation of the chart. So let me select it here, and this will pull out a chart for us. Now the color coding, which shows the access to electricity across all the years, right? So if you want to see the average access to electricity index, you can go to this sum of access to electricity here card, and go and change the measure. Instead of aggregating and sum it up over the years, you can select the average. So that will be the average access to electricity for any year for each of the country that is being displayed. Now you can see the color coding, which shows that the lighter blue is showing the lower access to electricity, while darker blue showing the higher access to electricity. However, this particular color pattern is default, but not very intuitive. So let me go here and click on this down arrow and go on to the edit color option. As I do that, there are different palette options available. One of my favorite is red, green, and gold diverging. Let me see where I can find it. Yeah, there you go. Once I select it, that means the red color shows the low access and green color shows the higher access and orange color shows the in between. And that's very intuitive to go by. And let me OK it. As you see, the access to electricity pattern has changed. Now, if you want to see it in year wise, you can do that. You can select year, put it into the filter, and you can select years, and any particular year you can select it. Right now, I'm selecting year 2020. As I do that, it will give you this kind of graph. But in case if you wanted to show your filter here, and let me do the show filter here and press it back here. And instead, if you want to see like 2018 data, you can see it like this. And that will give you this kind of graph. If you see 2017, you will see the different picture of the world, right? And that's our third graph that we created. And fourth graph which we are going to create today is the efficacy of government education spending. Now this is very interesting. How do we measure the efficacy when we talk about the government's education spending. So there are two things here. Let me copy paste this chart and then we can create, let me name it as Efficacy of Government Education Spending. And let me remove all these things here and let me put it here. This should be fine. Let me remove this like long from here. So we have two columns which pertains to education. One you can say as literacy rate, which is correlated with the education spending, as we say. So we have this two column, and we also have a country as a third column. We want to see in how each country performs on these two parameters. And once we select these three columns which we require, we can go to show me. We are going to select this tree map or heat map, as you say. Select it, and as you do that, it will give you this beautiful square heat map. Now each of the square represent one country, and the size of the square is nothing. As you see this size card, so in the size card we have government expenditure on education. Now that's sum. So when you say sum, that means we do have in the filter years. So we're talking about 2017. So we are saying the size of each of the box shows the government expenditure on education. So Saudi Arabia is spending the most on education, and probably Germany or China is not spending very high on education. Compared to Saudi Arabia, it's less. Now come to the color part of it. As you see the color here, the blue color, dark blue color represents the higher literacy rate, and the lighter blue color represents the lower literacy rate. Now we can change the color index here to make it more intuitive again. So let me go to edit color here, and we can select maybe, let's say, orange, blue and white diverging, and let me select this. Now here dark blue shows the high literacy rate while the red shows the lower literacy rate. So as you can see, this we are talking of year 2017 because we have filter on of 2017. So if I remove 2017 as a filter and put back 2020, which is the last year of our data. So as on 2020, as you can see, South Africa is spending a lot of amount on education, but still have the lowest literacy rate, or rather low literacy rate. So what it means that whatever amount you're spending there is probably not able to give you enough results. While if you see Saudi Arabia, they're spending a lot just like South Africa, but their literacy rate has also improved significantly. So that's where a lot of improvement has happened, and whatever fund you are utilizing it is giving you the results. So that's why I say this chart will show the efficacy of the government spending on education, and for each of the country you can find out how it works, right? And for each of the year. Okay, so this is our efficacy of government education spending chart. Let's move to our next chart. Let me copy again this chart and make it duplicate chart. And let me show you our fifth chart for today. And that's GDP versus gross capital formation. So this will be interesting one. Let me rename this. So this will be GDP versus gross capital formation. So let me remove all this thing from here. Let me remove here also. So what we want is two things, GDP and gross capital formation. So we're going to select this two column, maybe GDP in $1 billion and gross capital formation. So we have gross capital formation column, and we also want to see country wise. So let me select country. Once we select this three column, I'm going to show me option, and we're going to create this bubble chart. Now bubble chart are nice to have as a good visualization, but it's not often good for the reason, let me show you. So let me select this bubble chart here. As you can see from the chart, there are countries where you find the name and you can identify which bubble pertain to which country. But as it comes to like the smaller bubbles, you cannot actually see the name of the country, and that's where you need to go and hover around its circle to identify the country name. And that's why I don't find the bubble chart very helpful. So now we have this chart, and let me change. Our aggregation method is sum. So it is summing up the GDP and the gross capital formation across the year. So we would rather be better off by seeing the average GDP and average gross capital formation, right? And let me also change the color pattern like we did for other graphs before. Here I'm going to choose maybe different palette. Let's say maybe red, green, and white diverging, or let's say maybe red, green, and gold diverging. So the size of the bubble represents the GDP. So higher the GDP, the bubble size will be larger. The lower the GDP, the bubble size will be smaller, right? And the color shows the gross capital formation. So if your capital formation is higher, the color of the circle or the bubble will be green. If your gross capital formation is lower, the color of the bubble will be red. So as you can see that United States is having the largest GDP, but in terms of gross capital formation, it is not up to the mark. It's not number one. It's still lagging behind. Why? If you see the China, in terms of GDP, although it's not the best or the number one, but in terms of gross capital formation, it is number one. It is one of the best because the color of the bubble is green. And this is how you read the chart. This is a very interesting chart to read between GDP and gross capital formation and see what's happening in each of the country. Now, the small titles which you see here, the labels or the country name, they are these labels. In case if you want to increase their font, we can do that. So let me go to this country label card here and let me click on it. Let me go to format option here, pen option here, and go to the font. And instead of 9, you can select 10, and that will make slightly bigger font and make it bold. So this is how you can increase your font and play around with your labels as well. So this is our fifth chart. Let's move to the next chart. We have exports versus imports. Let me copy this chart and duplicate it, and let me name it as export versus imports. Okay, and let me remove all this columns that we have. Now we wanted to see exports and imports. So export of goods, and let me select import of goods and services, right? And I wanted to see for each of the country. So I'm selecting country. We go to show me as an option. Here, I wanted maybe some fancy chart. Let's say bullet graph chart. Now this is the type of chart which will be very useful to us, especially when you are tracking the progress or the deficit between two of the parameters. So export and imports are directly related to the trade deficit, which it gives on the capital budgeting. So it's very important. You can visualize that with the help of such chart. So we have export and import for all the countries. So countries you see on the y-axis, and the exports of goods and services you see on the x-axis, and imports also you see with the help of this small black lines. That's import on the graph. And let me set this as an entire view chart. Let me also change the axis here and let me format it. Let me go to the header and go and select axis. And let me make it a little bold here. I don't want this country as a header. So let me select country and let me hide this field because this is evident that these are the name of the countries. Okay, let me go and change the axis, format this axis, my x-axis as well. So let me select my axis, go to format option, go to axis here, and let me select again the standard way which we did for all the graph. Yeah, so that's practically our chart. Now, if you want to change the color of this bars, you can change it. You can select this color, go to color option, and instead of a blue color, let's say probably we want to select green, and that's how you see the green color bars appearing. If you want to change this average import of goods, and those are small black lines. So if you want to change that, select on any particular line, you will see the option here to change it. So we have line here, can increase the size of the line, and if you want to change color as well, you can do that. If you don't want to change the color, let it be black here. And this is how you can see the chart. So this is export and import. Now, you can arrange it in ascending, descending order. Go to this option called sort by descending order. As I do that, it will sort with the help of sum of exports of goods. And this is sum right now across the year. So in case if you want to see the average for the year, let's go on to this column option. And instead of measure as a sum, let's select average here. Similarly, in case if you want this labels, let's change it import. So let's change this label. Let's change the measure for imports as well. Let me select on this label here. And instead of sum, let me select average here. Yeah. Now, as you can see that Germany is surplus, trade surplus. It exports more than what it imports. Similarly, countries like Saudi Arabia and Italy and South Africa, they are exporting more than what it imports. But when it comes to country like, let's say, United States or even India, the bigger countries, or maybe the France even, they are importing more than they're exporting. So hence it will create a trade deficit. And this is what you can able to ascertain from the graph like this. So this was our 6th graph. So let's see our 7th graph at hand. That's mobile subscription versus GNI. And for that, let me copy paste one more time here and duplicate my chart. And let me name it as mobile subscriptions versus gross national income. And let me remove all these columns that we had, right? So what we want here is we want 2 columns, mobile subscriptions and GNI. So let me select mobile subscription and let me select gross national income across all country. Again, I'm going to create the heat map. And as I do that, it will show me the gross national income as a size of the box. So bigger the box, it shows the higher gross national income, and the color shows the mobile subscription. So let me change the color part of it. Let me go to edit color here, and let me change to maybe let's say orange, blue, white diverging, and select OK. And you can also change the labels and format it a little bit. Right now they are in blue color. So we go to font option here and let me select bold option here. So now we can see that United States is having the higher gross national income overall on all the years put together. But when it comes to the mobile phone subscriptions, which is less or somewhere in the middle, it's not one of the best. While if you see the Japan, which is having the highest or one of the highest mobile phone subscription, but in terms of gross national income, it is not one of the best. Let's quickly create our last graph of the day, and that's FDI distributions. Right. So I wanted to study the FDI pattern for each of the country across the year. So let me just copy paste this chart for the last time. Let me make it duplicate. Let me remove all this column that we selected here. Okay, so let me change this name to FDI Distributions or FDI Distribution, and wanted to see the foreign direct investment for all the country. Once I do that, I go to show me option and I have this box chart where I wanted to study the distribution of FDI across country. So I'm selecting it. As I do that, I can find just one box plot which shows the sum of foreign direct investment. Now, I really don't want to study the sum across all the country, all the year. So I'm going to do something different here. I'm clicking on this rows option, foreign direct investment here. And instead of it showing it as a measure, I'm seeing it as in term of dimension, right? So let me select dimension. As I do that, it won't change graph to an extent, but hold on till I do this. So let me select the country from here and put it back to my column. As I do that, now as you can see that for each of the country, the box plot is created, and each of the little circle representing each of the year, I can reduce the size of it as well. Right. So as I do that, the circle size will reduce. Let me go and format this axis because the name of the country looks very, very big. So let me go and format it. And we go here and font, let me select it to 9 again. And I can change the color of it as well. Let me change this axis as well. And let me do the format part of it to the axis. To the same standard format that we maintain throughout our dashboard. So this is our FDI distribution. This is our last chart of the day. Now, we have created all the required 8 charts as you see on your screen. Now, it's important to use these charts and create the final 2 dashboards that we wanted to. So, let me quickly create the dashboard. So, on the bottom, you see 3 options. You have new worksheet. So for all this time, we are selecting that option. What's important here now is to create new dashboard. So we are selecting this new option called new dashboard, and that will create the dashboard. And you will find the screen like this. So what's important here is to make your canvas slightly bigger. So what we're going to do is we're selecting the size of this canvas. So instead of this size, let me select it to automatic. And as I do that, I get this bigger canvas size. Now we can pull out our different charts in here and make a dashboard. Now each dashboard has to be meaningful. It should serve some kind of purpose. It cannot be random. So for now, what we're going to do, we are selecting the charts as we created, and we are putting that into our dashboard. Okay, let's start pulling out our chart and put it onto the dashboard right away. So let me put the inflation rate as a chart and put it just here. It's just drag and drop. Just like this. Let me select unemployment rate here and put it right here. Let me also select access to electricity chart and put it here. And let me also select efficacy of government education on government education spending and put it here. Now, as you can see that our dashboard, this is a working dashboard which is practically created. But let me show you what all think we can do it in a better way. So as you can see on your right hand side, this space is not properly utilized. So if you want to properly utilize this space, we wanted to shift this common filters, or if you don't want filter at all, we can remove it. So what I'm going to do is we don't want this filter right now because we see all the countries list here. So as I mentioned at the beginning of my video, I said that Tableau dashboards are interactive. So we're going to leverage the one chart to filter out the other charts. And that's practically like one chart interacting with the other chart. So if you do any kind of selection on one chart, it will also go and create impact on other chart. And it will also filter out the data for other charts. So we're going to do that. For that purpose, I do not require this filter as of now. So let me just select it and remove it. Though I require year filter, but I have 2 options available here. So let me remove one of them, and then I have year of year here. So what I'm going to do first here is we have this country, Canada and Germany, which is for this first chart. So let me go and select it. I don't want this country as a label. So I can remove the title, and that will give me the name of this country. Again, I'm going to the same box and make it floating. As I do floating, that means I can shift it around anywhere on my dashboard. So let me put it right now here. Okay. And let me do the same thing with the year. So let me quickly remove the title here and let me make it floating. And let me put it maybe somewhere around here. And let me make it a little smaller. Now this is average access to electricity. This is the indicator for this chart, which is there on the map. So let me remove the title here and let me make it floating again. And I can do like this. I can put it somewhere here so that people can read it. Same goes with the literacy rate graph. Remove the title and literacy rate. Okay. It's not floating. Let me make it floating here. And let me put it right here. And this box occupying the space. So let me go and delete it. As I do that, you can see that the places where we put this floating part of it, it stays there. So we need to again adjust it slightly. So let me put it here. And let me also put it here. So this is first dashboard that we created. So let me show you the interesting part. So as you select any of your graph and click on this little filter button here, so you can use this graph as a filter. Now we're going to use a different graph as a filter. Let's say this efficacy of government education spending. This graph we are going to use it filter. Similarly, access to electricity, we are going to use it as a filter. So as I do that, these two graphs are selected as a filter. So now what happens if I just select, let's say Saudi Arabia and let's say Indonesia. So as I select this two country, as you can see, the top graph unemployment rate has been changed. It's showing for Indonesia and Saudi Arabia. Similarly, the inflation rate is not for Canada or Germany, it's for Indonesia and Saudi Arabia. So then this is what I mean by interactivity. This is more interesting. We are open to play around with this and see that what all interesting insights you can draw out of this particular dashboard. And do comment out in the comment box and let me know what all insights you have derived or what is the interesting part that you can tell me, right? Let me create our second dashboard of the day. So let me go back to this option called new dashboard again here. And let me click it here. Now here we need to adjust the layout of the screen size. So let me click on this button. And let me select the size. Choose instead of range. Let me select it to automatic here. Now here, I know that I have used first, second, third, and fourth chart. So let me go and use other charts. So maybe GDP versus gross capital formation, export versus import, mobile subscription versus GNI, and FDI distribution. Right. Again, we have this dashboard ready. However, we need to utilize this space more effectively. So let me select this average gross capital formation and let me remove title here and let me make it floating. Right, and let me put it gross capital formation somewhere here. This is average mobile phone subscription. Let me remove title. Let me make it floating and put it right here. Now, as you can see that we have not utilized this chart fully, the space. So we can select this chart and go to fit option and select the entire view option, and that will fit our chart perfectly. Right, and let me adjust this slightly. Let me remove this space here and adjust further our color bars. And this is practically our second dashboard. Now again, we can make it interactive just like we did for our dashboard one. So let me select this particular chart as a filter. I can select this chart as a filter as well. So as I select, let's say United States and maybe Japan and let's say China. So if I select this three country, I can see export and import position for this three country. Similarly, I can see the GDP and gross capital formation for this three country only in their comparison. Similarly, their FDI distribution. When you combine this graph, you can leverage all of them together, and that's the interactivity for you. So today we have created 2 different dashboards and 8 different charts when it comes to visualization. I tried and create different type of chart to expose you to the different charts. That's all I have for today. And please use this data. I'll put the link of this Tableau dashboard and the data file in the description box below. Use that, create your own dashboard. Do let me know how do you feel in the comment box. And I'll see you in my next video. Till then, bye-bye. Take care.
Please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.